It was late at night as I passed through the narrow alley. A girl approached me asking for help. "Mister, please help me," she said. "Two men have been following me for a while." I helped her out of the situation, and little by little, she found her way into my heart. But half a year after we got together, I discovered something in her cabinet. A championship certificate for a taekwondo competition. Leaving the shop, it was already past midnight. Dragging my exhausted body, I headed home. As I passed through the alley again, suddenly a girl rushed over and grabbed my arm. In a sweet, playful tone, she said, "Honey, why are you so late? I've been waiting for so long." I was stunned, thinking she must have mistaken me for someone else. Just as I was about to pull away, I heard her softly pleading, "Hey, big brother, please help me. Those two men have been following me." Hearing that, I glanced behind her. And sure enough, there were two suspicious-looking men. So I played along. "Today was busy at the shop. Sorry I'm late. Let's go home." The two men, seeing this, hurriedly walked away. The girl let go of my arm, gratefully saying, "Thank you so much, big brother. If I hadn't run into you, I don't know what I would have done." "You're welcome." Then the girl tapped her phone a few times, but the screen remained dark. She seemed a bit embarrassed and said, "My phone's out of battery. Could you help me hail a car?" "Sure," I said, "I'll call one for you." As soon as the driver accepted the ride, I waited with her by the roadside for the car to arrive. Then she pulled out a pen and paper from her bag and handed them to me. "Thank you so much for today. Leave me your WeChat," she said. "When I get home and charge my phone, I'll transfer the fare to you." "It's fine. No need. How can that be? You've helped me so much. If I let you pay the fare too, that would be too embarrassing for me. You should leave me your contact info." Seeing her insist, I didn't refuse any further. When I got home, I wearily removed the prosthetic leg from my left side, even though this prosthetic had been with me for 3 years, as familiar to me as could be. After walking for a long time, it still made my leg ache. After setting the prosthetic down, my mother came over. She excitedly said, "Gee Boda, you're third," and said she wants to introduce you to a girl today. She's an elementary school teacher, and she's arranged for you to meet her tomorrow. Hearing this, I felt a headache coming on. Ever since my leg got injured, my parents had aged considerably. After they finally made peace with it, they became obsessed with matchmaking for me. I knew they just wanted me to settle down quickly, so I'd have someone to rely on. But for someone like me, disabled and all, what right do I have to ruin someone else's life? So once again, I refused. Forget it. "Mom, I'm like this now. I shouldn't be a burden to others." But hearing those words, tears began streaming down her face. "Are you trying to worry me to death, child? I never wanted you to become a firefighter, but you insisted. Now look what's happened. You're injured like this, getting older without even a wife. And now I ask you to go on a date and you won't go. Are you really trying to drive me crazy? I didn't lie to anyone. I made your situation very clear to them. They still agreed to meet. So why are you hesitating now? I don't care. You have to go tomorrow." I feared my mother's tears. Every time she pulled that move, I was helpless. I had no choice. I had to agree. The date was set for 6 p.m. the next day. I arrived early at the restaurant my aunt had arranged for us. Just then, a familiar voice rang out in my ear. "It's you." I looked up, and to my surprise, it was the girl I helped last night. She sat down across from me and complained, "The WeChat ID you gave me yesterday was wrong. When I tried to add you, it said the number was invalid. Did you write it wrong?" "Well, it wasn't a mistake. I had deliberately written it wrong last night. After all, We were just strangers passing by. There wasn't any need to exchange contact details. But what a coincidence to run into her again today. So I made up an excuse. Maybe it was too dark last night. And I wrote it wrong. No worries. Just add me now. And I'll transfer the fare to you. Facing her bright, doe-like eyes, I really couldn't find the words to refuse her. After adding her on WeChat, she introduced herself. My name is Liu Ryan. After saying that, her eyes suddenly sparkled as she looked at me. Her gaze made me feel slightly confused. I calmly avoided that expectant look and said, my name is G Boder. G as in record, Bo as in big, and Da as in reach. After we exchanged names, for some reason, her mood seemed to dip a little, but quickly, she snapped back to her usual self. Are you here with a friend for dinner? Something like that, I replied. Liu Ryan seemed to pick up on my slight discomfort. She teasingly said, it couldn't be. You're here for a blind date, are you? Seeing my silence, she smiled softly. What a coincidence. I'm here for a blind date too. She glanced at her watch. My date should be arriving soon. I'll find another seat. After this brief interruption, both Liu Ryan and I waited for our respective blind dates. But after half an hour, the seats across from us remained empty. It seemed we had both been stood up. Liu Ryan took it in stride. Once she realized she'd been stood up, she came back to sit across from me. Is your blind date still coming? If not, how about we share a table and eat together? I'm starving. Sounds good to me. After the meal, I naturally went to pay the bill, only for the waiter to tell me it had already been settled. Puzzled, I looked at Liu Ryan. When did you pay? For the meal? She chuckled. I paid when I went to the restroom earlier, she said casually. How much was it? I can give you the money, I started to offer, but Liu Ryan waved it off. This meal is my way of thanking you for helping me last night. You have no idea. Those two guys followed me all the way. I was so scared. If I hadn't bumped into you, I really don't know what I would have done. So don't be polite about this meal. Well, if that's the case, I'll gratefully accept. After leaving the restaurant, we took the elevator down. But unexpectedly, halfway down, the elevator suddenly stopped. No matter how much I pressed the buttons, there was no response. It seems to be malfunctioning. I quickly pressed the call button to ask for assistance from the mall. They responded, saying someone would come to help soon. But in the meantime, Liu Ryan and I, not being very familiar with each other, found ourselves awkwardly stuck in this confined space. It felt a bit uncomfortable, so I pulled out my phone, hoping to scroll through some short videos to ease the tension. But as soon as I opened the app, a loud, seductive voice echoed through the small elevator. What kind of man can marry into a wealthy family? Learn high emotional intelligence, and you'll ensure that the rich lady can't live without you. What a ridiculous ad to pop up at that moment. Even though I quickly pressed the mute button, I could see Liu Ryan trying hard not to laugh. Her expression made it clear she found it hilarious, but was trying to be polite. Inside, I felt utterly embarrassed. Luckily, we soon heard movement outside the elevator. It seemed like the fire rescue team had arrived. After confirming that we were okay, the firefighters began prying open the doors from the outside. In no time at all, Liu Ryan and I were back in the light. But when I saw the firefighter in charge, I froze. Clearly, so did he. G Boder, what are you doing in there? My heart clenched, and I awkwardly smiled. Just having a meal nearby. As I stepped out of the elevator, I was ready to leave, but Meiji, the firefighter, grabbed my arm. Where have you been these past few years, man? You've completely lost touch with the old crew. After your accident, we wanted to visit you at home, but the station chief said you had moved. We tried to find you, but we couldn't. Facing my old comrade, I felt a swirl of emotions. I mumbled a weak excuse, My dad's job made us relocate, so we had to move. I didn't get a chance to let everyone know. Oh, I see. Well, it's great we ran into each other. How about we all meet up tonight for a drink? The guys have been missing you. I hesitated, feeling conflicted, but just then Liu Ryan stepped in, once again slipping her arm around mine like last night. Let's go, dear. We've got a flight to catch. I caught on quickly, using the moment to escape Meiji's invitation. Brother MEI, we've got a flight to catch. Let's catch up another time on the phone. Seeing this, Meiji didn't seem offended at all. In fact, he wasn't bothered by it one bit. On the contrary, after seeing Liu Ryan, he seemed genuinely happy for me. Oh, is this your wife? Good. That's great. You two should get going then. Next time. You have asterisk to reach out to the guys. I mumbled a few polite responses, then hurriedly left. It wasn't until we were out of Meiji's sight that Liu Ryan finally let go of my arm. She apologized. Just now, I noticed you didn't really want to stay and catch up, so I took matters into my own hands. I hope I didn't offend you. Not at all, thank you. I really didn't want to reconnect with the old crew under these circumstances. Thinking back, Meiji and I had joined the Kunnan fire station together. He was a few years older than the rest of us in that intake, so he always acted like the big brother. He took good care of us younger guys. We shared the same dorm, came and went together, and on the fire grounds, we had each other's backs as comrades and cherished each other as brothers. But all of that came to a sudden halt the year I lost my leg in a rescue operation. When they found out I would need an amputation, the guys were devastated. They always blamed themselves, thinking they hadn't done enough, that they hadn't gotten me out in time. And that's why I lost my leg. So whenever they visited me, their eyes were filled with guilt and sorrow. And during that time, I was struggling to accept the loss of my leg. So whenever I saw the guilt and pity in others' eyes, I would lose control of my emotions, lashing out, venting all the darkness and hopelessness I felt about life onto them. Everyone knew I was struggling, so they tolerated me without question. But the more they indulged me, the more it confirmed that I had become a complete failure. In time, consumed by self-doubt and inner turmoil, I decided to abandon everyone. My former comrades, my colleagues, my superiors, and even my friends. I avoided them all. I locked my soul away in that shadow deep within me, refusing to let any light in. As time went on, my world shrank until only I was left. Later, when I started to recover from the pain, I thought about reconnecting with them, but I didn't know what I could say. They were still out there, braving the storms and living their missions as firefighters. But me, I was just a broken man. From then on, we completely lost contact. I never expected to run into Meiji today, feeling heavy-hearted. Liu Ryan and I left the mall. But to our surprise, the once calm sky suddenly unleashed a torrential downpour. Neither of us had brought an umbrella. I glanced at Liu Ryan, noticing her thin clothing. Without thinking, I took off my jacket and handed it to her. Call a ride. And take my jacket while you wait. What about you? I'll wait here until the rain stops. She hesitated, looking at me uncertainly. Liu Ryan didn't say anything more. She took my jacket and wrapped it around herself, then dashed into the rain. Only after she got into the car did I slowly step into the downpour with my prosthetic leg. The large raindrops pelted my face, cold, wet, and even a little painful. But I didn't care at all. I only wished the rain would pour harder, hard enough to wash away all my insecurities. Just then, I suddenly saw a familiar figure running toward me. She was still wearing the jacket I had given her. It was Liu Ryan. Coming back. I was confused. Why are you running back in this heavy rain? Did you forget something? Liu Ryan shook her head. No! I just had a feeling that you seemed really upset. And sure enough, when I came back, I found you standing in the rain. I'm fine. Just go! This rain is too heavy, you'll catch a cold. It's okay. Getting wet won't kill me. Besides, we're friends now, aren't we? As she said this, her eyes sparkled brightly. Even though the rain was pouring down on her, I nodded. I guess we are. If we're friends, I think having a friend by your side right now might make you feel a little better. Her words left me stunned. Ever since I lost my left leg, I couldn't remember how long it had been since I'd made a friend. Suddenly hearing the word friend, I found it strangely unfamiliar. I looked down at Liu Ryan. Her thin autumn clothes and hair were already soaked by the rain. Her once rosy and fair face had turned pale and fragile, like a helpless, weak kitten. Even her delicate features, usually so refined, now seemed pitiable under the heavy rain, stirring an inexplicable sense of sympathy. The sky hung low and dark at that moment, with people rushing by under their umbrellas, hastily moving along the streets. But Liu Ryan and I stood calmly in the rain, as if time had come to a standstill. Snapping back to reality, I quickly grabbed Liu Ryan's hand, pulling her under the shelter of the eaves. Liu Ryan, as if unsatisfied, asked, "Are we done standing in the rain? I feel like I could stay in it a bit longer." I frowned and said, "Don't stand in the rain anymore. You should take care of your health." Without thinking, Liu Ryan responded, "You too. But I'm different." Yet as I looked at her, I didn't say anything more. I simply hailed another ride for her and sent her off. But just as she had said, standing in the rain together did feel better than doing it alone. A few days later, Liu Ryan suddenly messaged me. "Are you there? Send me your location. I'll return your jacket." I replied, "It's fine. I'll come get it next time. It's better if I bring it to you. You were kind enough to lend me your jacket. I can't ask you to come all the way just to get it back." Seeing this, I didn't insist any further. I sent her the location of my apartment complex. Not long after, Liu Ryan arrived at the entrance of my building. I quickly put on my prosthetic leg and headed downstairs. As soon as she saw me, Liu Ryan smiled brightly and waved. Besides returning my jacket, she handed me a box of homemade cookies. "Here, I made these for fun at home. I brought some for you to try." "Thanks." I took the jacket and the cookies, ready to head back. But then, out of nowhere, I ran into my mom. Seeing me and Liu Ryan chatting happily, her eyes lit up as she approached us. "Oh my! Hello, young lady. Are you a friend of G. Boater?" Hearing this, Liu Ryan politely greeted her. "Yes, Mom. Nice to meet you." My mom's smile grew even wider. "Good. Friends are wonderful. Since you're G. Boater's friend, why don't you come upstairs for a cup of tea?" Inwardly, I felt alarmed. I quickly signaled Liu Ryan to decline, but she didn't catch onto my signals. Instead, she obediently allowed my mom to lead her upstairs. Once we were inside, my mom enthusiastically made tea, then subtly started asking Liu Ryan about herself. Noticing that she seemed intent on playing matchmaker, I quickly cut her off. "Alright, Mom. She's just here to return my jacket. Let's not take up too much of her time." My mom glared at me. "What's wrong with you?" I was just thinking Liu Ryan seems like a kind girl. I thought we could have some tea together and chat a bit. Don't ruin the mood. Honestly, you're too much sometimes. You're really giving me a headache, my mom grumbled. Liu Ryan quickly offered. "Do you have a headache, Auntie? How about I give you a massage?" Surprised, my mom asked. "Ryan, you know how to give massages?" Liu Ryan smiled shyly and said, "I'm studying traditional Chinese medicine, so I can help by pressing a few acupuncture points to improve circulation." Wow, I didn't expect someone so young to have such skills. Well, Andy will trouble you then. Seeing things spin out of control, I started feeling a bit of a headache myself. I decided to escape to the kitchen and cook. By the time I finished, Liu Ryan had already finished massaging my mom. My mom, looking entirely relaxed, exclaimed, "Ryan, your skills are amazing, and he really thanks you. Why don't you stay for dinner? You should try Jibota's cooking." During dinner, my mom couldn't stop praising how great Liu Ryan's massage had been. Liu Ryan warmly responded, "Auntie, if you ever get a headache again, just let me know. I'll come and help you out." "Oh no, that would be too much trouble," my mom said. Liu Ryan smiled sweetly and replied, "It's no trouble at all, Auntie. Actually, I have a small favor I'd like to ask you." "Of course," my mom said. "Go ahead." Hearing this, Liu Ryan smiled a bit shyly and said, "The place I'm living now is a bit far from the hospital. It's not very safe coming back after night shifts. So I've been thinking about moving somewhere closer. One really like this neighborhood of yours, Auntie. It's only 10 minutes from the hospital. Could you help me keep an eye out for any available rentals here?" Hearing this, my mom seemed excited to help. The first time we met, it seemed to be because she had gotten off work late and was followed by two ill-intentioned men. So I nodded and said, "Yes, it's probably time you found a safer place to live. I'll keep an eye out for you too. If something suitable comes up, I'll let you know." "That would be wonderful. Thank you." From that day on, I began paying attention around the neighborhood. Anytime I saw a for rent sign, I'd inform Liu Ryan right away. Later, worried that as a young woman, she might be taken advantage of during viewings or overcharged, I started accompanying her each time. After about 2 weeks, Liu Ryan finally found a place she liked, a unit right above mine. After signing the contract and paying the rent, we officially became neighbors. My mom was overjoyed when she found out. She would often visit Liu Ryan for a massage and frequently invite her over for meals. Sometimes when she made soup, she'd send me upstairs to deliver it. I understood my mom's intentions. She was clearly trying to set us up, but I knew her hopes were destined to go unfulfilled. One day, my mom made soup again and asked me to take some to Liu Ryan. But just as I knocked on her door, the entire building plunged into darkness. The power had gone out. With the darkness came a startled cry from Liu Ryan. Thinking something had happened to her, I quickly fumbled through the dark to find her. In my panic, I reached out and grabbed her hand. "Are you okay? Did something happen?" The next second, Liu Ryan pressed tightly against me, grabbing my arm with her hand. And in a frightened voice, she said, "It's so dark. I'm scared." I thought something serious had happened to her, but it turned out she was just afraid of the dark. So I didn't let go of her hand. Instead, I reassured her, "Don't be scared. It's just a power outage. The electricity should come back soon. I'll stay with you while we wait." "Okay, but don't go." Her voice trembled as she spoke, like she was afraid I'd leave her alone. In this quiet, dark night, someone was relying on me so completely. It made me feel human again, bringing a soft warmth to my heart. Gently, I replied, "I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry." The soup I was holding had started to burn my hands, so I thought I'd crouch down to set it on the floor. But Liu Ryan misunderstood, thinking I was about to leave. In a panic, she rushed toward me. "You said you wouldn't leave?" Her soft body suddenly crashed into my chest, making my heart race wildly. Logic told me I should push her away, but the intoxicating scent from her hair overwhelmed my senses, causing my mind to go blank. I forgot everything. After that brief moment of indulgence, the lights flickered back on, restoring the world to brightness. The power had returned, and there I was, holding Liu Ryan in my arms, her head tilted upward, and our gazes locked in an intense exchange. There was an unspoken emotion spreading between us, and in that instant, we both became acutely aware of each other's heartbeat. Snapping back to reality, I finally realized Just how ridiculous we must have looked. I quickly tried to push Liu Ryan away, but to my surprise, I couldn't. Instead, she held me even tighter, her gentle yet cautious voice breaking the silence. Gee, Boda, actually, I kind of like you. Why don't we give it a try? Her words ignited something inside me, like a fuse being lit, quickly exploding in my ears. A storm of emotions surged through my mind, unleashing wild thoughts within me. On the verge of spiraling out of control, fearing that loss of control, I forced myself to push her away with more strength. Between us, it's impossible. Hearing my response, Liu Ryan's face showed a trace of disappointment. Why? You don't have a girlfriend, and I don't have a boyfriend. Why is it impossible? Even if you don't like me now, it doesn't mean you won't fall for me in the future. Impossible means impossible. Not everything in life needs a reason. Without waiting for her to react, I turned and fled. For the first time since losing my left leg, I realized I could walk this fast. When I got home, my mom saw the dazed look on my face and asked, "What's wrong with you? Did you give the soup to Ryan?" "Yeah, I gave it to her." She kept rambling on. Good. I made this soup so light and sweet. Ryan will definitely love it." Before she could say more, I interrupted her, lost in my own thoughts. I returned to my room with a heavy heart, not even coming out for dinner. I didn't know what was wrong with me. After rejecting Liu Ryan, I felt incredibly sad. I thought maybe I had fallen for her. And that's why when I suppressed my feelings and rejected her, it hurt so much. But aside from rejecting her, I truly couldn't give her any other response, because in my eyes, she was perfect. But in her eyes, I was only perfect on the surface. Underneath my clothes, my true self was ugly and incomplete. If I allowed myself to indulge in this false perfection and deceive her feelings, that would be truly unforgivable. So, I had to personally end this budding affection between us. From that day on, I began deliberately distancing myself from Liu Ryan. I would leave the house early to go to the shop, and even if there was nothing to do at night, I'd stay late before heading home. This way, I could perfectly avoid seeing Liu Ryan during her comings and goings. This avoidance was so obvious. Even my mom noticed something was off. One morning, she stopped me and said, "Son, why have you been leaving so early and coming home so late lately? Ryan has come by looking for you several times, but hasn't seen you. No matter how busy the shop is, you can't ignore your future prospects. Mom can see it clearly now. Since Ryan moved into our complex, it's not just about making her commute easier. She moved here because of you. I think she may not even care about your leg." Before she could finish her sentence, I cut her off immediately. "She may not care, but I care. The reason I've been leaving early and coming home late is to avoid her. And from now on, don't say anything unnecessary in front of her." My mom looked like she wanted to say more, but after seeing the sadness in my eyes, she finally fell silent. Even though I avoided her in person, Liu Ryan kept trying to reach me on WeChat. Every message she sent, I read, but didn't reply. I resolved not to respond, but every time I ignored her, it pained me. But thinking about it, Liu Ryan was likely feeling even worse. She had come to me full of hope, only to be completely rejected in the end. I had assumed that the distance between adults was something I could control. After all, when I left the fire station, I had successfully distanced myself from my old comrades, but I hadn't expected that Liu Ryan would be different from them. That evening, when I returned home, I found her waiting for me at the entrance to the complex. By now, the autumn dew had passed, and the chilly winds were growing colder each day. Yet there she stood, dressed in a thin jacket, waiting outside. The warm light from the street lamps fell on her, casting a soft, inviting glow over her entire figure, making her presence even more captivating. She looked up and saw me, and those once calm, serene eyes suddenly sparkled with a dazzling light. Liu Ryan ran towards me. Boda, you're back. I quickly took off my coat and draped it over her. The wind is so strong. What are you doing standing out here dressed like this? I was waiting for you. Just as she finished speaking, the quiet night was interrupted by the sound of her stomach growling. Hearing it, Liu Ryan awkwardly covered her stomach, casting an embarrassed glance at me. I sighed helplessly. You haven't eaten yet? No! I didn't know what to say. Liu Ryan was more stubborn than I had imagined. We had only known each other for a few months, and I hadn't done anything significant for her. How could she be so set on me? And yet, I also knew that her waiting downstairs for me tonight meant she had something important to say. So, I decided to give her an answer. With that thought, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I spoke lightly. If you're going to wait for me, you should at least remember to eat. Food is the most important thing in life, after all. But you come first, Liu Ryan said, looking up at me, her gaze filled with a stubborn determination I couldn't quite understand. The tenderness in my heart, once restrained, now grew wildly within me. Yet, I had no choice but to harden my resolve. To shatter her hopes. Let's go upstairs. Liu Ryan invited me up to her place for a chat. She said she had something to tell me. Perfect, because I had something to say to her as well. Once we were upstairs, Liu Ryan looked at me several times before finally speaking slowly. Boda, have you been avoiding me lately? Yes. Can you tell me why? I had been debating within myself for a long time whether to reveal the truth to Liu Ryan. In the end, I made up my mind. I would use this moment to end everything between us. So I didn't say anything at first. Instead, I rolled up my pant leg and showed her my most vulnerable and unappealing side, below my left knee. There was nothing. Before this, I was a firefighter at the Kunnan fire station. 3 years ago, during the disaster in Yangshuan, I was temporarily assigned to help with disaster relief. During the rescue operation, an aftershock hit unexpectedly, and I was trapped under a collapsed building. The situation was critical, and the team had to retreat. By the time they rescued me, this leg, I gestured to the prosthetic, couldn't be saved. Seeing the stunned expression on Liu Ryan's face, I couldn't help but feel a wave of sadness wash over me. But I continued anyway. After that, my life plunged into endless darkness. For a long time, I was completely lost, not knowing how to face this sudden change in my life. So I pushed away my colleagues, my friends. I didn't want their pity or guilt-filled looks on me. And the same goes for you. I don't want you to one day. I don't want you looking at me with that same pity in your eyes. So please don't come looking for me anymore. Between us, it's impossible. After hearing my words, the passion in Liu Ryan's eyes didn't fade. Instead, it burned even brighter. She spoke with certainty. So, Boda, you do like me, don't you? You'd rather reveal your scars to make me give up than say something that would truly hurt my heart, right? Sometimes I couldn't fathom how her mind worked. A normal person would at least consider stepping back at this point, or at the very least calm down and reflect on this relationship. But not her. Even now, she was still fixating on these small details. So I asked her, does it even matter at this point? Yes, it matters. This is important to me. Looking at her, I finally realized that something was off. You're not surprised. Liu Ryan gazed at me. Ignoring my question, she said, so, Boda, you really don't remember me? 3 years ago in Yangshuan, I was there too. Hearing this, I stared at her in shock. You've met me before? Yes. Even though you don't remember me, I've never forgotten you. Liu Ryan's eyes burned with intensity, as if she was trying to see right through me. She said, 3 years ago, I had just finished my exams and went to Yangshuan to visit my father. But during lunch, the disaster struck. I was terrified. I didn't have time to run. I was trapped under the rubble at home. It was you and thousands of other firefighters who rushed into danger and saved us. I still remember it vividly. The entire building had lost power, and I was buried in the dark for 2 days and 2 nights. The darkest time of my life. In the end, it was you, like a hero descending from the heavens, who pulled me from the wreckage. From that moment on, I started to like you. Hearing this, I was completely stunned. The things she spoke of, I barely remembered. After all, as a firefighter back then, I had saved many people. But as Liu Ryan mentioned certain details, I vaguely recalled. After the aftershocks had subsided, there was indeed a young girl during the rescue operation who kept asking around for my unit number. At that time, I was wrapping up the final tasks and met her briefly, encouraging her to regain her confidence and move past the trauma of the disaster. And then, that was it. So, Liu Ryan was that little girl from back then. She had remembered me all these years because of such a small act. If that's the case, I absolutely cannot accept her feelings. I hope you take some time to calm down and rethink this love you feel for me. In that situation, you were facing a life-threatening experience, full of fear and uncertainty. It just so happened that I appeared at that moment, saved you, and brought you into the light. Naturally, you're grateful to me. That feeling is completely normal. But if you think you fell in love with me because of that, then you need to ask yourself, did you mistake gratitude for love? But Liu Ryan refused to acknowledge this. I know my own feelings. I understand them better than anyone else. As the person who saved me, you might not think much of it. But for me, you are my hero. Is it wrong for me to fall in love with my hero just because of how you feel? Does that invalidate everything I've held onto for all these years? As she spoke, tears welled up in Liu Ryan's eyes. Do you know, G. Boater, why I went to Yangshuan to find my dad in the first place? I went to ask him for money. My parents divorced when I was little, and neither of them wanted me. That year, I got into university, but I didn't have the money to go, even though I worked all summer. It still wasn't enough, so I went to borrow money from my parents. But then the disaster struck. Do you know, my father had remarried, and he had a new wife, and 2 kids, a brother and a sister. When the tremors started, my father and stepmother each took 1 child and fled. I was the only one left behind in the rubble. Seeing those endless tears flow down her cheeks, my heart twisted with pain. I never expected that the ever-enthusiastic Liu Ryan, like me, also had hidden vulnerabilities. By the end of her story, she was sobbing uncontrollably, turning her back to me to wipe away her tears, not wanting me to see her in such a fragile state. I couldn't hold back any longer. I stepped forward and embraced her from behind. In that moment, I forgot I was a cripple. I only knew one thing. The person I liked was crying. She was hurting, and she needed someone to be her emotional outlet. Nothing else mattered. Everything else faded away. Gradually, Liu Ryan's emotions settled. I thought she might continue to cling to me like before. But to my surprise, after her emotional release, she was unexpectedly calm. Liu Ryan wiped her tears and said, I'm sorry, G. Boater. I've been selfish, following you around all this time, without ever asking if you wanted me to. Someone like me, someone even my own parents didn't want. How could I expect anyone else to love me? Before, I was foolishly dreaming. Go! From now on, I won't bother you anymore. I won't make things difficult for you. With that, Liu Ryan forced a smile and politely asked me to leave. Seeing the strained smile on her face, I felt a deep sadness, mixed with confusion. I didn't know how to face Liu Ryan anymore, because the truth was, she was right, I had fallen for her. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen to reveal my scars, rather than hurt her with cold words. But, even though I've gotten used to relying on my prosthetic to replace my missing left leg, the truth is, the prosthetic is still fake. Without it, I'm undeniably just a man who can't even walk. I'm in every sense a broken man. With that thought, I swallowed all the comforting words and sympathy I wanted to offer her. I'll head back now. You, take care of yourself. Don't be sad anymore. Okay, good night, Jiboda. As soon as the door closed, it effectively shut me out of Liu Ryan's life for good. After this final conversation, things between Liu Ryan and I became completely distant. I no longer had to go out of my way to avoid her. Even if we happened to run into each other in the neighborhood, we'd only exchange a nod before passing each other by. Though the storm inside me never truly calmed, on the surface, it seemed this was the best ending for us. However, when my mom noticed what was going on, she was furious and scolded me relentlessly. How could you hurt such a good girl like Ryan, especially when she likes you so much? You're so ungrateful. You think you're the only man in the world? Just wait. I'm going to find her a good man, and she settled down soon. Mom, stop trying to play matchmaker. Don't cause her any trouble. With a huff, my mom retorted, who's playing matchmaker? Ryan herself told me before that because her parents divorced when she was young, she's felt like she's been without a home ever since. So now she wants to quickly build a family of her own. So you don't need to worry about her anymore. I'll take care of it. After saying this, my mom really did contact her old friends, asking them to introduce some reliable young men to Liu Ryan. Within one phone call, she had already arranged a blind date for Liu Ryan. The meeting was set for the next afternoon at a cafe near our neighborhood. Hearing my mom on the phone describing Liu Ryan to others, I felt a pang of discomfort in my chest. It felt like something precious to me was being taken away. But in the face of all this, there was nothing I could do. If Liu Ryan could find her happiness through this, then I should wish her well. But by the next afternoon, as I sat in the shop, my mind was already far away. I glanced at the time. It was already 6 o'clock, just around the time of Liu Ryan's blind date. Feeling restless, I knew I couldn't focus on anything anymore. So I closed the shop early, deciding to head to the cafe to check on her. After all, Liu Ryan had only just graduated. She was still inexperienced in the world. What if she ended up with the wrong kind of person? That wouldn't be good. I should go take a look. Although I believed my reasons for being here were perfectly justified, as I approached the entrance of the cafe, I suddenly felt a pang of guilt. In the end, I went to the convenience store next door and bought a hat and a mask. After fully disguising myself, I slipped into the cafe as stealthily as possible. The moment I stepped inside, I saw the back of Liu Ryan. Sitting across from her was a young man who looked quite refined and cultured. The two of them seemed to be deeply engaged in conversation. I sat down directly behind Liu Ryan, stretching my ears to eavesdrop. They were already discussing post-marriage plans. The more I listened, the heavier my heart grew. Just as I was about to leave in frustration, Liu Ryan suddenly excused herself to the restroom. And in that brief moment while she was away, I heard the refined young man immediately take out his phone and record a voice message. My dear, I'm at a matchmaking meeting right now, but don't worry. The girl I'm with seems eager to get married. but she's not very decisive. Once we get married, and she has our child, I'll tell her about you. By then, even if she doesn't want to be a beard, she have no choice. Hearing this, I was filled with rage. If it weren't for the fact that Liu Ryan was about to return, I would have gone over and punched that scumbag in the face. When Liu Ryan came back, that scumbag continued chatting with her as if nothing had happened, just as my patience was wearing thin. The matchmaking dinner finally came to an end. After Liu Ryan left, I pretended to coincidentally bump into her and greeted her. Just had a matchmaking meeting? Liu Ryan looked a bit embarrassed to run into me. Yeah, that's right. So, what do you think of the guy? Any feelings? He was okay, I guess. Like me, he's also in a rush to get married and start a family. In a way, we're quite in sync. We'll just see how things go for now. Hearing this, my heart tightened, an internal alarm going off immediately. I think you two are not really a good match. Liu Ryan gave me a puzzled look. Why not? I just feel like your energies don't quite align. Seeing how vague I was being, Liu Ryan's eyes darkened as she stared at me. But didn't you say you didn't want me bothering you anymore? Now that I'm trying to find someone quickly, isn't that exactly what you wanted? I thought you would be happy to see me pair up with someone. So, are you saying you don't want me to be with him? Don't overthink it. I'm just giving you advice as a friend. Hearing this, Liu Ryan seemed to get a bit stubborn. Are you going to say now that it's impossible between him and me too? Where in the world do things happen so perfectly? I'm determined to give it a try with him. With that, Liu Ryan started to walk away. Panicking, I grabbed her arm. But he's gay. I have no issue with gay people. But he's clearly trying to deceive you into being his beard. If you really get together with him, you'll ruin your whole life. Is that so? I had thought. Liu Ryan seemed a bit disheartened. But soon enough, she perked up again. Thank you for the reminder. But it's alright. Whether I become a beard or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Since I can't marry someone I truly love, why should it matter? This time, I was truly getting angry. So just because I rejected you, you're going to hurt yourself like this? Have you ever thought that punishing yourself over someone else's emotions is a really foolish thing to do? But Liu Ryan just looked at me, numb. So, even if I don't act out of spite towards you and marry a good person who fits society's expectations, would the outcome be any better? Do you know how my parents ended up together? They were high school classmates. They secretly admired each other. They encouraged each other. They made a pact to get into the same university. In the end, they built a happy life together. Theirs was one of the rare romances that went from school days to the wedding aisle. Everyone envied their deep bond, their inseparable connection. They were held up as a model of love. But in the end, things still changed, didn't they? All those vows of eternal love didn't make their divorce any more graceful than anyone else's. So why should the way a relationship begins have to meet society's expectations? I think what really matters is enjoying the beauty of the moment. Maybe as time goes on, the answer will come on its own. Her words startled me, and I could feel something inside me breaking through the surface. Liu Ryan's final sentence awakened me. The answer we preset for the future, is it always going to be the right one? Maybe with time, as the days pass, the answer will come. As my emotions surged within, Liu Ryan, on the other hand, grew calm. She said, since you've already figured out how you want to live your future, there's nothing I can do to change it. So please, don't interfere in my life anymore. Your constant, unclear concern for me makes me misunderstand, makes me think that you like me. If I misunderstand too much, I might end up clinging to you again. I interrupted Liu Ryan's words. You didn't misunderstand. What? I said, you didn't misunderstand. I do like you. That sudden confession left Liu Ryan momentarily stunned. You! What did you just say? I took a step closer, gazing straight into her eyes, and said seriously, I said, I like you. I've always liked you. It's just that because of my own issues, I did those things that let you down. I'm sorry. Why now, all of a sudden? Because your words woke me up. It's true, nothing stays the same forever. Not everything remains untouched by the flow of time. So I thought to myself, if one day in the future, you really end up finding a so-called good person to date and marry, would I truly be at ease? I guess I wouldn't be able to let it go either. So, why not be the one to bring you happiness myself? I can't bet on someone else treating you well for a lifetime. But I'm certain I can. Though my body is incomplete, my heart is whole. And right now, do you still want this heart of mine? As soon as I finished speaking, Liu Ryan's eyes filled with tears, and she threw herself into my arms. As long as you're willing to give, I'll take it. From that day forward, Liu Ryan and I officially became a couple. When my mother found out, she couldn't stop smiling every day. After getting together with Liu Ryan, I realized that her previous clinginess towards me was only the tip of the iceberg. Once our relationship was official, she practically wanted to be by my side every moment. Because of this, I no longer had time for the self-doubt and inner struggles that used to plague me. My life now was filled with Liu Ryan's presence at every turn. The mere thought of her made me feel like my life was bathed in light. A clear and smooth path ahead. Liu Ryan also knew that I was still haunted by my amputated left leg, so she constantly showered me with praise. Boda, your eyes are so beautiful. It's a shame I don't know how to write poetry. Otherwise, I would write 100 poems just about your eyes. Boda, how do you cook so well? Boda, this hairstyle really suits you. You look like a college student. Compliments like this I would hear from her almost every day. Over time, I began to believe, as Liu Ryan said, that I was perfect. One day, Liu Ryan accompanied me to buy clothes. I tried on a perfectly fitting long trench coat. After paying, I cut off the tags and wore it right out of the store. Once we stepped out, in a quiet corner, Liu Ryan suddenly wrapped her arms around my neck, grinning as she asked, Boda, why are you getting more and more handsome? Looking into her eyes filled with deep affection, I suddenly felt inspired and said, because I'm being loved by you. Because of your love, all my flaws become unique and endearing traits. Because of your love, I can show you the truest version of myself without holding back. Hearing this, Liu Ryan was momentarily stunned. Then her gaze softened, and with emotion, she rose up on her tiptoes and kissed me lightly on the lips. I'll make sure you're always loved by me. Epilogue 6 months after being with Liu Ryan, thanks to her companionship and understanding, I found peace with many things from the past. She even encouraged me to face everything I once tried to avoid. Reconnecting with my old comrades, she reminded me not to wait until I lost friendships, to realize too late that time had slipped away. So I found a good time and brought Liu Ryan with me to visit the Kunin fire station. Many of my old comrades, those who used to be here, were no longer around, but Emi Ijibo, our eldest brother, was still here, diligently holding the fort for everyone. Seeing me take the initiative to visit, Emi Ijibo was so moved his eyes welled up with tears. The bond between us brothers didn't need many words. In the end, old Emi I patted my shoulder and said, good, really good. From now on, We brothers need to gather more often. I laughed, feeling as spirited as I once was. Of course. I still remember you owe me a lot of meals from back then. Don't forget to pay up. Don't worry. You won't miss out, kid. After leaving the fire station, I felt a weight had been lifted from me. Liu Ryan was sincerely happy for me. Hey, the way you look now reminds me of when I first met you. Back then, it was this version of you that captured my heart. We exchanged a smile, and all the beauty of that moment seemed to freeze in time. After returning home, Liu Ryan and I began preparing for the move. I had already proposed to her successfully, and we decided to choose an auspicious day for the wedding. But, as a couple deeply in love, we just wanted to be together all the time. So we planned to move in together before the wedding. As for the house, I'd already gotten it ready. On the official moving day, I went to Liu Ryan's house first to help her pack her things. She had quite a lot of stuff, since she had always lived a somewhat nomadic lifestyle. So she took all her important belongings with her wherever she went, while I was moving a box filled with her old belongings. The bottom of the box suddenly gave way under the weight. Everything spilled onto the floor. I hurried to pick things up. Scattered on the ground were her childhood photo albums, her teenage diaries, a few yellowed letters, and several beautifully crafted trophies and certificates. Then I noticed a certificate that read, Champion of the Ning'an Province Taekwondo Competition. Taekwondo! Champion! I looked at the photo of Liu Ryan receiving the award. Though she still had a bit of youthful innocence in the picture, the award must have been from her university years. In the photo, Liu Ryan was wearing a martial arts uniform, a black belt tied around her waist, her gaze sharp and full of fierce confidence. This was a complete contrast to the Liu Ryan I thought I knew. I couldn't help but wonder, did she really need my help that night to chase away that creepy guy? At that moment, Liu Ryan walked in, saw me holding her certificate, and nervously said, "Well, what if I told you that the person in the photo is actually me from a parallel universe? Would you believe it?" I chuckled. What do you think? Later, I realized Liu Ryan really didn't need my help chasing off that creepy guy, because on our wedding day, many of Liu Ryan's old Taekwondo friends showed up. The ones she used to compete with. Oh, and those two creepy guys ended up being our groomsmen. I had always thought in our relationship that I was the one holding all the cards, the one in control. Turns out I was wrong. Liu Ryan is the real hunter.